It's the early hours, that's why I'm lying in bed, and I'm not going to speak too loudly in this video for obvious reasons. I do feel like making it though, because this is something that means quite a lot to me. It's something that for years I haven't really dwelt on very much, but it did impact me when I first arrived in England. I'll get straight to the point. It's about my identity as a Northern Irish person. I made a video similar to this before, but like I say, I've got a philosophy these days of recycling some of my older videos, if the issues are still valid. And I guess what's prompted me to make this is that guys just commented on that video with a rather lengthy, fairly cynical approach. So, just to give you a basic background about myself, I was born in Northern Ireland, Belfast, in 1985. I lived there until I was 14 and I moved to England then. I'm now 28. So exactly half my life has been spent in England, and I do generally consider the fact I've grown up in England. But I've never really been able to escape the fact that, for me, Northern Irish identity is a complex matter. Because there's two sort of forces that you find as a Northern Irish person. I'm sure there's other people from Northern Ireland can relate to this video, so maybe I'm making it for them. There's two sort of forces that work against you trying to describe your own identity. One force is Irish Republicans. You don't need to be an expert in history to realise that there is issues in Ireland, the island of Ireland, concerning territory and national identity and so on. A lot of people in the Republic want a united Ireland. That's the way it is. I mean, that is the desire. For years this was a violent struggle, including acts of terrorism, and I'm not going to gloss that over because that's what it was. These days, most Irish Republicans totally denounce violence, but they do want a united Ireland. That is what they want. So they would not acknowledge the Northern Irish identity issue. They would just say you're Irish, that's it. And they would argue that Northern Ireland has been gerrymandered as part of the United Kingdom. There's some truth in that, but I'm not making this video for a long and very complex history lesson on the history of Ireland and Ireland's problems, North and South, because that would just take a million different YouTube videos. Believe me, I'm not even going to go into that. This is solely about my own identity. This isn't intended as a vociferously political video. Then there's the other side, which is the attitude in mainland Britain, which for the most part is based on profound ignorance. I've lost count of the number of people who, when I introduce myself and they say, oh, you have a bit of an accent there, I say, yeah, I'm from Northern Ireland originally. They'll say, oh, I have a friend in Ireland, and they just can't register that it's, to me, to people from Northern Ireland, there is a unique identity. It's not Ireland. It's and the thing is, it's difficult to express frustration with that because there's a stereotype about Northern Irish people being fundamentalists, and we're all sectarian-minded thugs, and that is a bit of a stereotype about Northern Irish people, that we're all fundamentalist. But it is nevertheless very frustrating when you hear this over and over and over again, and it's just based on basically laziness. It is just plain ignorance. It's very common in England, but you do get it in Scotland and Wales as well, which are Celtic parts of the UK. So of course there's a Scottish issue, and I'm going to make another video about that. This is not about the Scottish independence debate, because that would just I'm not going to make this video too complicated. But basically that's the two forces. On one side you have Irish Republicans saying you're Irish, accept that. And on the other side you have people in the mainland who don't really care, but part of that not caring is treating you as an outsider. So if you're Northern Irish, I'm sure other people can relate to this, you always feel like an outsider. Whether you're in mainland Britain, or whether it's a case of you're on the island of Ireland, but you recognise that Northern Ireland is a unique culture. I think part of this relates to the fact that Northern Ireland is unique among the four home nations of the UK in that it had a pretty violent conflict for 30 years. Nowhere else in Britain has had anything like this in terms of sectarian violence. Yeah, there's pockets of it in Glasgow and Liverpool, but not on the same scale. And there was IRA campaign in the mainland, but that really was only a taste of what Northern Ireland had to go through for 30 years of the Troubles. So I find it insulting that there is so much ignorance in England about this. And they just treat Northern Irish people as the other. I'm not saying it's necessarily hostile. I mean, people aren't cold, they're not unfriendly necessarily, but they do treat you like a foreigner. And that makes me angry, because I'm not a foreigner. I was born in this country. And the thing is, it's very hard to, because even when you correct them as politely as you possibly can, it's just a fixed mindset. They just don't register. And I'm not going to say it's everyone, but it is very widespread. I met a man today who said that, like, something about family connections in Mayo. To me, he may as well be talking about Hungary or the Czech Republic. The Republic of Ireland is another country to me. Now, I don't say that in a hostile way. There's a lot of things I like about the Republic of Ireland. I've visited quite a number of times. I love Dublin as a city. And I do have a lot of respect for Celtic culture. And part of me does relate to that. I'm not Anglo-Saxon, I am Celtic. But the Republic of Ireland is another country. And that's not me saying I want it to be another country, it's just a fact, it is another country. So when someone says, like, well, they've been to Mayo or they've been to Kerry or Donegal, I'm thinking, that's great, what's that got to do with me? And I know they don't mean anything by it, but to me it's a demonstration of you're not listening to me. And it is difficult, because you feel as a Northern Irish person, if you raise these issues, you'll be stereotyped. They'll think, oh, you're making a big fuss out of nothing, or you're sectarian minded. Before the record, I don't necessarily align myself with hardcore unionists. Far from it. In fact, I've no time for a lot of hardcore loyalists. A lot of them are, frankly, neo-nationalist thugs who have connections with the far right. There were loyalist paramilitaries who had connections with groups like Combat 18, which was, and sometimes when I look at other Northern Irish people, I cringe with embarrassment at just how racist and small-minded they are. Northern Ireland does have big problems with racism, and that does make me very uncomfortable. But that doesn't change the fact that I still call myself Northern Irish and British. And it's unfortunate that that element of unionism has sort of hijacked the overall picture. What I'm trying to say is not every Northern Irish unionist is a sectarian-minded racist who... Well, okay, I guess it is sectarian in the sense I'm calling myself unionist. I'm calling myself British, so I guess that's sectarian. But I'm not violently sectarian, to put it one way. I'm from a liberal family. I recall having Catholic friends in Belfast. I'm from a Protestant background. I had Catholic friends. I was lucky to come from a liberal background, and it may well be, had I grown up in a certain background in Northern Ireland, I could have ended up joining one of the paramilitaries. A lot of young men did. So I was profoundly lucky that I never took that route in life, because a lot of these guys today are drug addicts, They're just petty criminals. They started off as it's like any radical organisation. It's appealing to the young, and sectarian leaders were very powerful figures. This can be seen in the former Yugoslavia, parts of Russia. It's radicalism always appeals to disenfranchised young people. I was very lucky I never went down that route, but it hasn't altered how I feel about my own identity. And what I would say to people is, this is my right. It's a fundamental human right to decide your own identity. Now, I carry a British passport. I am a British citizen. And I have never ever felt that I've been bullied by the British to be that way. I can understand Republican arguments. They have a right to their opinion. But they don't have a right to tell me how I should feel about myself. I'm not talking about others. I'm talking solely about myself here. And I couldn't care less how they perceive that. This is my right. And that's the point I'm trying to get across. Nobody has a right to say, I have to call myself Irish, or I have no right to call myself British. I'm Northern Irish, I'm British, and I'm European. And that is the way I identify myself. And I'm a citizen of the world. There's 4 things. That's all there is to it. I'm not interested in arguing the rights and wrongs of the political situation. I'm aware there are rights and wrongs on both sides, and there's legitimate arguments on both sides, but it's a very, very, very old conflict. It's a bit like the Arab-Israeli thing. It would just go on all night if you tried to get any rational sense from it. So, frankly, I don't have the time for it. It's an interesting history, but it's also one that just won't. No one's ever going to win the argument, because both sides are just going to stand by their guns no matter what. So I'm not making this to be provocative against people from the Republic, nor am I making it to be provocative against British mainlanders. But I'm just trying to express how I feel as a Northern Irish person who's grown up in England. I still believe that Northern Ireland as a home nation is too overlooked, not necessarily by the government, but by just society. I mean, when we look at things like the Olympics, it's still Team GB, not Team UK. I take issue with that. I think it's a snub to Northern Irish athletes, but people in the UK, the mainland I should say, forget the sacrifice that Northern Irish men and women have went through for this country. Not only 2 world wars, where thousands of people died and were injured, but the fact there is a collective history. I mean, Belfast was bombed just as heavily as many other British cities. Actually, Belfast was one of the heaviest bombed cities during the Blitz. And the reason that's significant is it shows shared sacrifice for this country, for this United Kingdom. So, for me, it's not a trivial issue when people treat Northern Ireland like another place. I don't think about it all the time, because I know that would drive me nuts. I don't think about it all the time, but I'm thinking about it right now because those 2 things have reminded me. The guy today and just this person who's just commented on my video. I don't force anybody else to describe themselves in a certain way. I might debate in terms of historical facts, but I don't say you have to describe yourself in this way. To give an example, I believe that the United Kingdom should stay united, but I wouldn't tell Scottish people who are nationalists, I wouldn't say you have to call yourselves British. I have no right to dictate to them to do that, because that would make me an extremist, and I'm not an extremist. And I don't want to align myself with certain Ulster Unionists who I regard just as mindless far-right thugs. And frankly, I think they're an embarrassment. But at the same time, I have a strong sentimental connection with the UK. This isn't just about a passport, it's not just about paperwork or oh, it's just accident, I was born in the UK. I do have a strong sentimental connection with this country, and I have had for a very long time. That's all there is to it. I also have a Celtic sentiment, but basically I am a Celtic Briton. That's what I am, and it's what I will be until the day I die. Thank you for watching.